Hi there and welcome to this video. I hope you're all well, and as you know, if you've watched some of my previous videos, during lockdown I've been using some of the enforced downtime to really think about my bucket lists, my photography bucket lists in particular, and where I want to go when we're allowed out of this difficult, challenging lockdown period. You know, what it's reinforced to me is when you look at the opportunities and what really tickles your fancy around these things is the world is a big place. You know, I'm lucky, I've travelled a lot, both for pleasure and also on business, but often it's been for short periods of time, and it's just whet my appetite about different places. And going back and looking at sort of a map of the globe and where I might want to go from a photography perspective, it's created quite a long bucket list, and it's a mixture of new places and places I want to go back to and spend a bit more time and immerse myself more. In the new places, I perhaps put some places that I've been at one time of the year and I want to go at a different time of the year because it's a very different feel to the place. But as I say, it's a very long list of places. So what I've done for these videos is ended up dividing it into three. I've got my first video, and I'll put a link above for that, and that was really around local places. So for me here in the UK, relatively short term, that I might be able to go out and investigate once we're allowed out to travel a bit more. This video is going to focus on Europe, so perhaps places that we'll be able to travel to in 6 months, a year's time, when perhaps air travel becomes a little bit easier, a little bit safer. And then my final video will be looking at worldwide opportunities, so longer term, which will require a lot more planning, cost a lot more money, and will require, you know, the opening up of air travel a lot more. So if you haven't seen my first video on the UK, do have a look at it after this one. But this video is going to focus, as I say, on Europe, and it's a mixture of places I want to return to because I've been perhaps once for a few days but want to go back and immerse myself, and new places or places I've been but want to go back at a different time of the year. So I've tried to condense it down, and I've really whittled it down to 5 places I'm going to cover on this video. The list is a bit longer, but number 1 on my list is Italy. Italy is probably the country in Europe I've travelled to most because I did a lot of business in Italy. So I've been to most of the cities from the north near the Alps right down to the south, which are really down near North Africa, so Catania in Sicily. And one of the places I've been to quite a lot is Venice. And it's a place like no other on the earth, really, in a lot of ways. And in the summer it's really busy. However, I've been lucky, I've gone out of season, and I don't just mean the shoulder around May, June time and then September, October. I mean sort of right in the middle of winter, so January, February time. Now obviously you do get the carnival around that time, and that makes a peak of busyness in Venice, and I'm talking about outside of the carnival also, because what I've experienced is it's a very different place. It's really quiet. You quite often get some of the sea mist blowing in, and it makes a very different atmosphere for photography, and one that I found really quite nice. So I want to go back around that time of year, because when I was there in the past I was there on business and I didn't have the opportunity to do photography. So, you know, a real opportunity for me there. The second place in Italy that I'm going to just add on to the list is Cinque Terre. And this, if you haven't come across it, is about 5 villages that hang off the cliff along the western coast of Italy, just north of Pisa. So it takes about an hour on the train, very easy to get there. And these are, you've probably seen pictures of them, these little villages which have brightly coloured houses, and it's really beautiful. The train runs along between them, so what I want to do is go and stay in one of the villages, so I'm really immersed in the centre of it. And I want to go out of season again, so possibly April, May time, or September, October. You can walk along the cliff, so you can get up above, you can get some great viewpoints of these villages. They're each of them are very different. You can get some great sunrise and sunset shots there, and there's always something going on. So that's on my bucket list fairly easy to get to, but you know, somewhere you've got to go and really immerse yourself in to get some really great shots. Number 2 on my list is somewhere that's on probably most photographers' bucket lists, and that's Iceland. Now, I've been here once for pleasure and a couple of times for business. When we went on pleasure, it was around March time. So it was at the tail end of the winter. It was still quite snowy. Actually, you've got to remember that Iceland is a rock in the centre of the Atlantic. We were there for a few days and it was in the middle of an Atlantic storm. There were 85-mile-an-hour winds. You know, it blew over your camera if you didn't hold the tripod down. And that gave a great atmosphere. You got a real feel for Iceland at that time, the inhospitable nature. Because we were only there for a few days, we really based ourselves in Reykjavik and then went down the southern coast as far as Vik. But I'd like to go back and spend more time and really experience Iceland a bit wider than that taster of that part of the coast. Equally, Iceland's somewhere you've got to probably go back a couple of times. In the winter you get the inhospitable nature, you perhaps, if you're lucky, get the northern lights. We weren't that lucky. But I want to go back in the summer as well, because you get a very different Iceland. If you pick your time right, you can perhaps go and see the puffins. You can do, my bucket list is really the ring road around Iceland, so you get to see the fjords in the east, you get to see the northern coast, and perhaps if you've got the time you can go into the highlands in the centre. And for me, Iceland is about the nature, it's about the colours as well, and that's very different between the winter and the summer. So it's probably somewhere you've got to go back at least twice to capture the diversity that is Iceland. Now, when we were there, we were talking to some of the guides and they were telling us about the growth of tourism that have been going on. So I think picking your time is really important, and it may be one of the places that actually, if you want to get the most out of it, actually, you know, springing for a photography tour may be the way to go with that. For number 3 on the list, we're going to head due south and end up in Spain. And for me, again, Spain is somewhere I've been. I've been to most of the main cities in the centre and the south of Spain. So I've been to Madrid, Barcelona, Valencia, Malaga. But I want to get out of the main cities and actually head north. Just before the COVID lockdown, we were looking at spending some time in Bilbao, in the Basque region on the Atlantic Bay of Biscay coast. And the attraction is it's a very different part of Spain. The Basque region has different food. It's on the Atlantic coast. It's part of green Spain, which really benefits from that oceanic climate and therefore gives it more forest, more trees, a more green feel compared to the Mediterranean part of Spain in the south. You can also come inland a bit, and there's some national parks in the mountains inland from the northern coast, and you then get to the Rioja Valley. So if you're into your wines, that's somewhere to head as well. So I think, you know, Spain is, you know, somewhere that if you stick to the towns on the southern coast or Madrid, you get one feel, but it's very diverse, and moving out into some of those other areas is a real attraction to me. You know, if you're going to the south, I'd recommend Valencia. Really nice city, a little bit smaller than some of the bigger places like Madrid and Barcelona, but some of the architecture there is really impressive. For number 4 on the list, we're going to the opposite end of the Mediterranean, so we're going right to the eastern end of the Med. Now, it's only just in Europe, and it's Istanbul. Again, I've been to a number of the places along the Mediterranean coast in Turkey, but I've only been to Istanbul for a couple of days. And it gave me a taster, and it really is, you know, steeped in history. It's great food. There's that real East meets West culture. The different sides of the Bosphorus have different feels. You know, it's a real trading nation, so the bazaars, the shops, the markets are really interesting, and it makes for a great street photography location. And therefore, I want to go back and spend a bit more time there, perhaps explore some of the lesser known areas in the city to get a real immersive feel for it. Number 5 is a bit of a flip. It's not actually a place, it's actually I want to get into the big outdoors. I want to, really go to some of the big mountains or fjords in Europe. And therefore, if I had to put a country on it, it would either be Norway or perhaps Switzerland, and visiting those in the summer. What I want, in the UK, if you've watched my UK bucket list, you'll know that Scotland's on that list, but getting out into the enormity of nature and geography and seeing some of those big mountains, those big fjords, is something you can't necessarily do as well in the UK. And by going there in the summer, I think, certainly in the Alps, you get a very different feel from the winter when it's more of a skiing location. That enormity and freshness of nature, that relatively untouched by humans, is a real opportunity. So hopefully those 5 have given you a bit of an insight. There's still plenty of places on my list below those, and I'll be ticking those off as I move forward, and hopefully we move out of this lockdown phase we're in. But these are 5 that floated to the top as I've been doing my research. So have you been to any of them? If you've got any advice for me about where I should go, when I should go, a lot of research comes from personal experience of other people, and therefore it'd be great to hear in the comments below what your thoughts are if you've been there, or if they're on your bucket list, where are you looking to go? Equally, it'd be great to hear what's on your equivalent bucket list. Do drop it in the comments below, and you never know, people who are viewing these videos may have been there and may be able to help you in return for your help. So I hope this video has been inspiration for you, just giving you an idea of where in Europe you might want to go, or perhaps triggered you to think about your post-lockdown bucket lists. I hope you enjoyed the video. If you did, as always, hit subscribe, hit the notification bell, and you'll be notified of future videos. Keep safe, and I hope to see you on a future video.